Hare Krishna, this is one of your servant, walking on the path of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, and so I'm a software engineer though, and frankly saying, I don't have time to read Srimad Bhagavatam. So much so that I have had a plan in my mind that I should read or recite the Bhagavatam with you guys. This is early. This is like 12:30 in the night, and I'll just start one shloka or one dedication preface for Srimad Bhagavatam a day. So yeah, I think that would be my plan as of now. Right, so we can just start with the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Bol. Dedication to Srila Prabhupada Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, Mass Spiritual Master, on the 26th annual ceremony of his disappearance day. He lives forever by his divine instruction, and the forever lives within him. Of course, our great grand Guru Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj ki jai. So we just read the preface at this time. So yeah, we must know the present need of human society, and what is that need. Human society is no longer bounded by geographical limits to particular countries or communities. Human society is broader than in the Middle Ages, and the world tendency is toward one state or one human society. The ideas of spiritual communism, according to Srimad Bhagavatam, are based more or less on the oneness of the entire human society, nay, of the entire energy of the living beings. The need is felt by great thinkers to make this a successful ideology. Srimad Bhagavatam will fill this need in human society. It begins therefore with an aphorism of Vedanta philosophy, Janmadhye asya yataha, to establish the ideal of a common cause. Human society at the present moment is not in the darkness of oblivion. It has made rapid progress in the fields of material comforts, education and economic development throughout the entire world. But there is a pinprick somewhere in the social body at large, and therefore there are large-scale quarrels, even on less important issues. There is need of a clue as to how humanity can become one in peace, friendship and prosperity with a common cause. Srimad Bhagavatam will fill this need, for it is a cultural presentation for the re-spiritualization of the entire human society. Srimad Bhagavatam should be introduced also in the schools and colleges, for it is recommended by the great student devotee Prahlad Maharaj ki jai, in order to change the demoniac face of society. Kaumara acharat pragno dharman bhagavatan iha durlabham manushmam janma tad ape adhruvam arthadam. Srimad Bhagavatam 7th Canto 6th chapter 1st Shloka. Disparity in human society is due to lack of principles in a godless civilization. There is God, or the Almighty One, from the whom everything emanates, by whom everything is maintained, and in whom everything is merged to rest. Material science has tried to find the ultimate source of creation very insufficiently, but it is a fact that there is one ultimate source of everything that be. The ultimate source is explained rationally and authoritatively in the beautiful Srimad Bhagavatam or Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is the transcendental science not only for knowing the ultimate source of everything, but also for knowing our relation with Him and our duty toward perfection of the human society on the basis of the perfect knowledge. It is powerful reading matter in the Sanskrit language, and it is now rendered into English elaborately, so that simply by careful reading one will know God perfectly well. So much so that the reader will be sufficiently educated to defend himself from the onslaught of atheists. Over and above this, the reader will be able to convert others to accepting God as a concrete principle. Srimad Bhagavatam begins with a definition of the ultimate source. It is a bona fide commentary on the Vedanta Sutra by the same author, Srila Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva, and gradually it develops into 9 cantos up to highest state of God realization. The only qualification one needs to study this great book of transcendental knowledge is to proceed step by step, cautiously, and not jump forward haphazardly as with an ordinary book. It should be gone through chapter by chapter, one after another. The reading matter is so arranged with the original Sanskrit text, its English transliteration, synonyms, translation, and purpose, so that one is sure to become a God-realized soul at the end of finishing the first 9 cantos. The 10th canto, Hare Krishna, is distinct from the first 9 cantos because it deals directly with the transcendental activities of the personality of the Godhead, Sri Krishna Chandra. One will be unable to capture the effects of the 10th canto without going through the first 9 cantos. The book is incomplete in 12 cantos, each independent, but it is good for all to read them in small installments, one after another. I must admit my frailties in presenting Srimad Bhagavatam, but still I am hopeful of its good reception by the thinkers and leaders of society on the strength of the following statement of Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st canto, 5th chapter, 11th shloka or text. Tad vag vishargo jantagya viplavo yasmin prati shlokam abhaddvatya api namanye adantasya yasho ankitani yacha Shrinavvanti gayanti grinanti sadhavaha. On the other hand, the literature which is full of description of the transcendental glories of the name, fame, form, and pastimes of the unlimited Supreme Lord is a transcendental creation meant for bringing about a revolution in the impious life of a misdirected civilization. Such transcendental literature, even though irregularly composed, is heard, sung, and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. Om Tat Sat. इसी भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय. Let's go to introduction. The conception of God and the conception of absolute truth are not on the same level. The Srimad Bhagavatam hits on the target of the absolute truth. The conception of God indicates the controller, whereas the conception of the absolute truth indicates the summum bonum, or the ultimate source of all energies. There is no difference of opinion about the personal feature of God as the controller, because a controller cannot be impersonal. Of course, modern government, especially democratic government, it is impersonal to some extent, but ultimately the chief executive head is a person, and the impersonal feature of a government is subordinate to the personal feature. So without a doubt, whenever we refer to a control over others, we must admit the existence of a personal feature, because there are different controllers for different managerial positions. There may be many small gods. According to the Bhagavad Gita, any controller who has some specific extraordinary power is called a Vibhutimat Sattva, or a controller empowered by the Lord. There are many Vibhutimat Sattvas, controllers or gods with various specific powers, but the absolute truth is one without a second. This Srimad Bhagavatam designates the absolute truth or summum bonum as the Paramam Satyam. The author of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Vyasadeva, first offers his respectful obeisances unto the Paramam Satyam, absolute truth, and because the Paramam Satyam is the ultimate source of all energies, the Paramam Satyam is the Supreme Person. The gods or the controllers are undoubtedly persons, but the Paramam Satyam, from whom the gods derive powers of control, is the Supreme Person. The Sanskrit word Ishvara, controller, conveys the import of a god, but the Supreme Person is called the Parameshvara, or the Supreme Ishvara. A Supreme person or Parameshvara is a supreme conscious personality, and because he does not derive any power from any other source, he is supremely independent. In the Vedic literatures, Brahma is described as the supreme god or the head of all other gods like Indra, Chandra, and Varuna. But the Srimad Bhagavatam confirms that even Brahma is not independent as far as his power and knowledge are concerned. He received knowledge in the form of Vedas from the Supreme Person who resides within the heart of every living being. That Supreme Personality knows everything directly and indirectly. Individual, infinitesimal persons who are parts and parcels of the Supreme Personality may know directly and indirectly everything about their body's external features, but the Supreme Personality knows everything about both his external and internal features. The words Janmade Asya suggests that the source of all production, maintenance, or destruction is the same Supreme Conscious Person. Even in our present experience, we can know that nothing is generated from inert matter, but inert matter can be generated from the living entity. For instance, by contact with the living entity, the material body develops into a working machine. Men with poor fund of knowledge mistake the bodily machinery to be the living being, but the fact is that the living being is the basis of the bodily machine. The bodily machine is useless as soon as the living spark is away from it. Similarly, the original source of all material energy is the Supreme Person. This fact is expressed in all the Vedic literatures, and all the exponents of spiritual science have accepted this truth. This living force is called Brahman, and one of the greatest acharyas, namely Shripad Shankaracharya, has preached that Brahman is substance, whereas the cosmic world is category. The original source of all energies is the living force, and he is logically accepted as a Supreme Person. He is therefore conscious of everything past, present, and future, and also each and every corner of his manifestations, both material and spiritual. An imperfect living being does not even know what is happening within his own personal body. He eats his food but does not know how this food is transformed into energy or how it sustains the body. When a living being is perfect, he is aware of everything that happens, and since that Supreme Person is all perfect, it is quite natural that he knows everything in all detail. Consequently, the perfect personality is addressed in the Srimad Bhagavatam as Vasudeva, or one who lives everywhere in full consciousness and in full possession of his complete energy. All this is clearly explained in Srimad Bhagavatam, and the reader has ample opportunity to study this critically. In this modern age, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu preached the Srimad Bhagavatam by practical demonstration. It is easier to penetrate into the topics of the Srimad Bhagavatam through the medium of Sri Chaitanya's Mahaprabhu's causeless mercy. Therefore, a short sketch of his life and percept inserted herein to help the reader understand the real merit of Srimad Bhagavatam. It is imperative that one learn the Srimad Bhagavatam from the person Bhagavatam. The person Bhagavatam is one whose very life is Srimad Bhagavatam in practice. Since Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the absolute personality of Godhead, he is both Bhagavan and Bhagavatam in person and in sound. Therefore, his process of approaching the Srimad Bhagavatam is practical for all people of the world. It was his wish that the Srimad Bhagavatam be preached in every nook and corner of the world by those who happen to take their birth in India. The Srimad Bhagavatam is the science of Krishna, the absolute personality of Godhead, of whom we have preliminary information from the text of Bhagavad Gita. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has said that anyone, regardless of what he is, who is well versed in the science of Krishna, Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, can become an authorized preacher or preceptor in the science of Krishna. There is need for the science of Krishna in human society for the good of all suffering humanity of the world, and we simply request the leaders of all nations to pick up this science of Krishna for their own good, for the good of society, and for the good of for all the people, all the world's people. A short sketch of the life and teachings of Lord Chaitanya, the preacher of Srimad Bhagavatam. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai, the great apostle of love of God and the father of the congregational chanting of the holy name of the Lord, advented himself at Sridham Mayapur ki jai, a quarter in the city of Navadvipa in Bengal, on the Falguni Purnima evening in the year 1407 Shakabda, corresponding to February 1486 by the Christian calendar. His father Sri Jagannath Mishra, a learned Brahmana from the district of Sylhet, came to Navadvipa as a student because at that time Navadvipa was considered to be the center of the education and culture. He domiciled on the banks of Ganga after marrying Srimati Sachi Devi, a daughter of Srila Nilambara Chakravarti, the great learned scholar of Navadvipa. Jagannath Mishra had a number of daughters by his wife, Srimati Sachi Devi, and most of them expired at an early age. Two surviving sons, Sri Vishwarupa and Vishwambara, became at last object of the parental affection. The 10th and youngest son, who was named Vishwambara, later became known as Nimai Pandita, and then, after accepting the renounced order of life, Sri Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu exhibited his transcendental activities for 48 years and then disappeared from this mortal world in the year 1455 Sakabda at Puri. For his first 24 years, he remained at Navadvipa as a student and a householder. His first wife was Srimati Lakshmi Priya Devi, who died at an early age when the Lord was away from the home. When he returned from East Bengal, he was requested by his mother to accept a second wife, and he agreed. His second wife was Srimati Vishnu Priya Devi, who bore the separation of the Lord throughout her life because the Lord took the order of sannyasa at the age of 24, when Srimati Vishnu Priya was barely 16 years old. After taking sannyasa, the Lord made his headquarters at Jagannath Puri due to the request of his mother, Srimati Sachi Devi. The Lord remained for 24 years at Puri. For 6 years of this time, he travelled continuously all over India. India and especially throughout southern India, preaching the Srimad Bhagavatam. Lord Chaitanya not only preached the Srimad Bhagavatam but propagated the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita as well, in the most practical way. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Sri Krishna Chandra is depicted as the absolute personality of Godhead, and his last teachings in the great book of transcendental knowledge instruct that one should give up all the modes of religious activities and accept him as the only worshipable Lord. Which is Lord Sri Chaitanya, Lord Sri Krishna Chandra. Lord then assured that all his devotees would be protected from all sorts of sinful acts, and that for them there would be no cause for anxiety. Unfortunately, despite Lord Sri Krishna's direct order and the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, less intelligent people misunderstand him to be nothing but a great historical personality, and thus they cannot accept him as the original personality of Godhead. Such men with a poor fund of knowledge are misled by many non-devotees. Thus, the teachings of Bhagavad Gita were misinterpreted even by great scholars. After the disappearance of Lord Sri Krishna, there was hundreds of commentaries on the Bhagavad Gita by many erudite scholars, and almost every one of them was motivated by self-interest. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the self-same Lord Sri Krishna. This time, however, he appeared as a great devotee of the Lord in order to preach to the people in general, as well as to religionists and philosophers about the transcendental position of Sri Krishna Chandra, the primeval Lord and the cause of all causes. The essence of his preaching is that Lord Sri Krishna, who appeared at Vrajabhumi, Vrindavana, as the son of the king of Vraja, Nanda Maharaj, is the supreme personality of God and is therefore worshipable by all. Vrindavana Dham is not different from the Lord because the name, fame, form and place where the Lord manifests himself are all identical with the Lord as absolute knowledge. Therefore, Vrindavana Dham is the worshipable as the Lord. The highest form of the transcendental worship of the Lord was exhibited by the damsels of Vrajabhumi, which is Gopiya, in the form of pure affection for the Lord. And Lord Sri Krishna Chandra, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, recommends this process as the most excellent mode of worship. He accepts the Srimad Bhagavata Puran as a spotless literature for understanding the Lord, and he preaches that the ultimate goal of life for all human beings is to attain the stage of prema or love of God. Many devotees of Lord Chaitanya like Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur, Sri Lochan Das Thakur, Srila Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami, Srila Kavi Karnapur, Sri Prabodhananda Saraswati Thakur, Srila Rupa Goswami, Srila Sanatana Goswami, Sri Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Srila Jiva Goswami, Srila Gopal Bhatta Goswami, Srila Raghunath Das Goswami, and in this latter age within 200 years, Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti, Sri Baladev Vidyabhushan, Srila Shyamananda Goswami, Srila Narottam Das Thakur, Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, and the last Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, our spiritual master, and many other great and renowned scholars and devotees of the Lord have prepared voluminous books and literatures on the life and precepts of the Lord. Such literatures are all based on the Shastras like the Vedas, Puranas, Upanishads, Ramayana, Mahabharata, and other histories and authentic literatures approved by the recognized acharyas. They are unique in composition and unrivaled in presentation, and they are full of transcendental knowledge. Unfortunately, the people of the world are still ignorant of them. But when these literatures, which are mostly in Sanskrit and Bengali, come to light to the world, and when they are presented before thinking people, then India's glory and the message of love will overflood this morbid world which is vainly searching after peace and prosperity by various illusory methods not approved by acharyas in the chain of disciplic succession. The readers of the small description of the life and precepts of Lord Chaitanya will profit much to go through the books of Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur, Sri Chaitanya Bhagavata, and Srila Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami, Srila Chaitanya Charitamrita. The early life of the Lord is most fascinatingly expressed by the author of Chaitanya Bhagavata, and as far as the teachings are concerned, they are more vividly explained in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Now they are available to the English-speaking public in the teachings of the Lord Chaitanya. The Lord's early life was recorded by one of his chief devotees and contemporaries, namely Srila Murari Gupta, a medical practitioner at that time, and the later part of the life of Srila Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was recorded by his private secretary Sri Damodar Goswami, or Srila Swarup Damodar, who was practically a constant companion of the Lord at Puri. These two devotees recorded practically all the incidents of the Lord's activities. Later on, all the books dealing with the Lord, which are above mentioned, were composed on the basis of Kadachas by Srila, or notebooks by Srila Damodar Goswami and Murari Gupta. So the Lord advented himself on the Falguni Purnima evening at 14:00 Sakabda, and it was by the will of the Lord that there was a lunar eclipse on that evening. During the hours of eclipse, it was the custom of Hindu public to take bath in Ganges or any other sacred river and chant the Vedic mantras for purification. When Lord Chaitanya was born during the lunar eclipse, all India was roaring with the holy sound of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. These 16 names of the Lord are mentioned in many Puranas and Upanishads, and they are described as the Taraka Brahma Nama of this age. It is recommended in the Shastras that offenseless chanting of these holy names of the Lord can deliver a fallen soul from material bondage. There are innumerable names of the Lord both in India and outside. And all of them are equally good because all of them indicate the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But because these 16 are especially recommended for this age, people should take advantage of them and follow the path of the great acharyas who attained success by practicing the rules of the Shastras. The simultaneous occurrence of the Lord's appearance and the lunar eclipse indicated that the distinctive mission of the Lord. The mission was to preach the importance of the chanting the holy names of the Lord in the age of Kali. In this present age, quarrels take place even over trifles, and therefore the Shastras have recommended for this age a common platform for realization, namely chanting the holy names of the Lord. People can hold meetings to glorify the Lord in their respective languages and with melodious songs. And if such performances are executed in an offenseless manner, it is certain that the participants will gradually attain spiritual perfection without having to undergo more rigorous methods. At such meetings, everyone, the learned and the foolish, the rich and the poor, the Hindus and the Muslims, the Englishmen and the Indians, and the Chandalas and Brahmanas can all hear the transcendental sounds and thus cleanse the dust of material association from the mirror of the heart. To confirm the Lord's mission, all the people of the Lord will accept the holy name of the Lord as a common platform for the universal religion of the mankind. In other words, the advent of the holy name took place along with the advent of the Lord, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When the Lord was on the lap of his mother, he would at once stop crying as soon as the ladies surrounding him chanted the holy names and clapped their hands. This peculiar incident was observed by the neighbors with awe and veneration. Sometimes the young girls took pleasure in making the Lord cry and then stopping him by chanting the holy name. So from his very childhood, the Lord began to preach the importance of the holy name. In his early age, Lord Sri Chaitanya was known as Nimai. The name was given by his beloved mother because the Lord took his birth beneath a nimba tree in our courtyard of his paternal house. When the Lord was offered solid food at the age of 6 months in unprashanna ceremony, the Lord indicated his future activities. So this time it was customary to offer the child both coins and books in order to get some indication of the future tendencies of the child. The Lord was offered on one side coins and on the other side the Srimad Bhagavatam. The Lord accepted the Srimad Bhagavatam instead of coins. When he was a mere baby crawling in the yard, one day a snake appeared before him and the Lord began to play with it. All the members of the house were struck with fear and awe. But after a while the snake went away and the baby was taken away by his mother. Once he was stolen by a thief who intended to steal his ornaments. The Lord took a pleasure trip on the shoulder of the bewildered thief who was searching for a solitary place in order to rob the baby. It so happened that the chief thief, wandering hither and thither, finally arrived just before the house of Jagannath Mishra and being afraid of being caught, robbed the baby at once. Of course, the anxious parents and relatives were glad to see the lost child. Once a pilgrim Brahmana was received at the house of Jagannath Mishra, and when he was offering food to the godhead, the Lord appeared before him and partook the prepared food. The eatables had to be rejected because the child touched them, and so the Brahmana had to make another preparation. The next time the same thing happened. And when this happened repeatedly for the third time, the baby was finally put to bed. At about 12 at night, when all the members of the house were fast asleep in their closed rooms, the pilgrim Brahma offered his specially prepared foods to the deity. Same way the baby Lord appeared before the pilgrim and spoiled his offerings. The Brahmana then began to cry Hare Krishna, but since everyone was fast asleep, no one could hear him. At that time, the baby Lord appeared before the fortunate Brahmana and disclosed his identity as Krishna himself. Hare Krishna. Jai Ho. The Brahmana was forbidden to disclose this incident. The baby returned to the lap of his mother. There are many similar incidents in his childhood. As a naughty boy, he sometimes used to tease the orthodox Brahmana who used to bathe in Ganges. When the Brahmanas complained to his father that he was splashing them with the water instead of attending school, the Lord suddenly appeared before his father as though just coming from school with all his school clothes and books. At the bathing ghat, he also used to play jokes on the neighboring girls who engaged in worshipping Shiva in hopes to getting good husbands. This is a common practice amongst unmarried girls in Hindu families. While they were engaged in such worship, the Lord naughtily appeared before them and said, "My dear sister, please give me all the offerings you just brought for the Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is my devotee and Parvati is my maid servant. Hare Krishna. If you worship me, the Lord Shiva and all the other demigods will be more satisfied." So they refused to obey the naughty Lord, and he would curse them that due to their refusal they would be married to a old man who had 7 children by their previous wives. Out of fear and sometimes out of love, the girls would also offer him various goods, and then the Lord would bless them and assure them that they would have very good young husbands and that they would be mothers by the dozens and children. The blessings would enliven the girls, but they used to often to complain of these incidents to their mothers. In this way, the Lord passed his early childhood. When he was just 16 years old, he started his own Chatush Party village school conducted by a learned Brahmana. In the school, he would simply explain Krishna, even in readings of grammar. Srila Jiva Goswami, in order to please the Lord, later composed a grammar in Sanskrit, in which all the rules of grammar were explained with examples that use the holy names of the Lord. The grammar is still current. It is known as Hari Namamrita Vyakarana and is prescribed in the syllabus of the schools in Bengal. During this time, a great Kashmir scholar, Keshav Kashmiri, came to Navadvipa to hold discussions on the Shastras. The Kashmir Pandita was a champion scholar and he had travelled to all places of learning in India. Finally, he came to Navadvipa to contest the learned Panditas there. The Panditas of Navadvipa decided to match Nimai Pandita, Lord Chaitanya, with the Kashmir Pandita, thinking that if Nimai Pandita were defeated, they would have another chance to debate with the scholar, for Nimai Pandita was only a boy. And if the Kashmir Pandita were defeated, then they would be even more glorified, because people would proclaim that a mere boy of Deepa had defeated a champion scholar who was famous throughout India. It so happened that Nimai Pandita met Keshav Kashmiri while swimming on the banks of the Ganga. The Lord requested him to compose a Sanskrit verse in praise of the Ganga. And the Pandita within a short time composed 100 shlokas, setting the verses like a storm and showing the strength of his vast learning. Nimai Pandita at once memorized all the shlokas without an error. He quoted the 64th shloka and pointed out certain rhetorical and literary irregularities. He particularly questioned the Pandita's use of the word of the Bhavani Bhartua. He pointed out that the use of this word was redundant. Bhavani means the wife of Shiva. Bhavani means the wife of Shiva, and who else can be her bhrata or husband? He also pointed out several other discrepancies, and the Kashmir Pandita was struck with the wonder. He was astonished that a mere student of the grammar could point out the literary mistakes of an erudite scholar. Although this matter was intended prior to public meeting, the news spread like wildfire all over Navadvipa. But finally, Kashmiri was ordered by dream of Saraswati, the goddess of learning, to submit to the Lord, and thus Kashmir Pandita became a follower of the Lord. The Lord was then married with the great pomp and gaiety. At this time, he began to preach the congregational chanting of the holy name of the Lord at Navadvipa. Some of the Brahmanas became envious of his popularity, and they put many hindrances on his path. They were so jealous that they finally took the matter before the Muslim magistrate at Navadvipa. Bengal was then governed by Pathans, and the governor of the province was Nawab Hussain Shah. The Muslim magistrate of Navadvipa took up the complaints of the Brahmanas seriously. And at first he warned the followers of the Nimai Pandita not to chant loudly the name of Hare. But Lord Chaitanya asked his followers to disobey the orders of the Qazi, and they went on their own Sankirtana chanting party as usual. Nimai Pandita heard of this incident. He organized a party for civil disobedience. He is a pioneer of the civil disobedience movement in India for the right cause. He organized a procession of 100,000 men with thousands of mridangas and kartalas, hand cymbals, which is Hare Krishna. And this procession passed over the roads of Navadvipa in defiance of the Qazi, who had issued the order. Finally, the procession reached the house of the Qazi, who went upstairs out of the fear of the masses. The great crowd assembled at the Qazi's house displayed a violent temper, but the Lord asked them to be peaceful. At this time, the Qazi came down and tried to pacify the Lord by addressing him as nephew. But that he referred to Nilambara Chakravarti as uncle, and thus Srimati Sachidevi Nimai Pandita's mother was his cousin sister. He asked the Lord whether his sister's son could be angry at his maternal uncle. And the Lord replied that since Qazi was his maternal uncle, he should receive his nephew well at his home. This way the issue was mitigated, and the two learned scholars began a long discussion on the Quran and Hindu Shastras. The Lord raised the question of cow killing, and the Qazi properly answered him by referring to the Quran. In turn, the Qazi also questioned the Lord about cow sacrifice in the Vedas. And the Lord replied that such sacrifice as mentioned in the Vedas is not actually cow killing. In that sacrifice, an old bull or cow was sacrificed for the sake of receiving a fresh younger life by the power of Vedic mantras. But in the Kali Yuga, such cow sacrifices are forbidden because there are no qualified Brahmanas capable of conducting such a sacrifice. In fact, in Kali Yuga, all yagnas are forbidden because they are useless attempts by foolish men. In Kali Yuga, only the Sankirtana yagna is recommended for all practical purposes. Speaking in this way, the Lord finally convinced the Qazi, who became the Lord's follower. The Qazi thenceforth declared that no one should hinder the Sankirtana movement which was started by the Lord. And the Qazi left this order in his will for the sake of progeny. The Qazi's tomb still exists in the area of Navadvipa, and Hindu pilgrims go there to show their respect. The Qazi's descended as residents, and they never objected to Sankirtana, even during the Hindu-Muslim riot days. This incident shows clearly that the Lord was not a so-called timid Vaishnava. A Vaishnava is a fearless devotee of the Lord, and for the right cause he can take any step suitable for the purpose. Arjun was also a Vaishnava devotee of the Lord Krishna, and he fought valiantly for the satisfaction of the Lord. Similarly, Bajrangaji Bali or Hanuman was also a devotee of the Lord Rama, and he gave lessons to the non-devotee party of the Ravana. The principles of Vaishnavism are to satisfy the Lord by all means. A Vaishnava is by nature a non-violent, peaceful living being, and he has all the good qualities of the Lord God. But when the non-devotee blasphemes the Lord or his devotee, the Vaishnava never tolerates such impudence. After this incident, the Lord began to preach and propagate his Bhagavata Dharma or Sankirtana movement more vigorously, and whoever stood against this propagation of the Yuga Dharma or duty of the age was properly pushed by various types of chastisement. Two Brahmana gentlemen named Chapala and Gopala, who also happened to be maternal uncles of the Lord, were inflicted with leprosy by way of chastisement, and later, when they were repentant, they were accepted by the Lord. In the course of his preaching work, he used to send daily all his followers, including Srila Nityananda Mahaprabhu and Thakur Haridas, to chief whips of his party from door to door to preach the Srimad Bhagavatam. All the Navadvipa was surcharged with his Sankirtana movement, and his headquarters were situated at the house of Srivas Thakur and Sri Advaita Prabhu, two of his chief householder disciples. These two learned heads of the Brahmana community were the most ardent supporters of Lord Chaitanya's movement. Sri Advaita Prabhu was the chief cause the advent of the Lord when Advaita, because she was the chief cause for the advent of the Lord. When Advaita Prabhu saw that the total human society was full of materialistic activities and devoid of all devotional service, which alone could save mankind from all the threefold miseries of the material existence, he, out of his causeless mercy, compassion for the age-worn human society, prayed fervently for the incarnation of the Lord and continuously worshipped by the Lord with water of the Ganga and leaves of the holy Tulsi Maharani. As far as preaching work in the Sankirtana movement was concerned, everyone was expected to do his daily share according to the order of the Lord. Once Nityananda Prabhu and Srila Haridas Thakur and walking down the main road, and the way they saw a roaring crowd assembled. Upon inquiring from passerby, they understood that two brothers named Jagai and Madai were created a public disturbance in a drunken state. Just a second. Thank you. They also heard that these two brothers were born in a respectable Brahmana family, but because of low association, they had turned into debauches of the worst type. They were not only drunkards but also meat eaters, women hunters, dacoits, and sinners of all description. Srila Nityananda Prabhu heard all of these stories and decided that these two fallen souls must be the first to be delivered. If they were delivered from their sinful life, the good name of the Lord Chaitanya would be even still more clarified. Thinking in this way, Nityananda Prabhu and Haridas pushed their way, Haridas Thakur, Hare Krishna, pushed their way through the crowd and asked the two brothers to chant the holy name of the Lord Hari. The drunken brothers became enraged upon this request and attacked Nityananda Prabhu with filthy language. Both brothers chased them a considerable distance. In the evening, the report of the preaching was submitted to the Lord, and he was glad to learn that Nityananda threatened to deliver such a stupid pair of fellows. The next day, Nityananda Prabhu went to see the brothers, and as soon as he approached them, one of them threw a piece of earthen pot at him. This struck him on the forehead, and immediately blood began to flow. But Nityananda Prabhu was so kind that instead of protesting the heinous act, he said, "It does not matter that you have thrown this stone at me. I still request you to chant to the name of the Lord Hari." Once of his brother Jagai was astonished to see his behavior of Nityananda Prabhu, and he at once fell down at his feet and asked him to pardon his sinful brother. When Madai again attempted to hurt Nityananda Prabhu, Jagai stopped him and implored him to fall down at his feet. In the meantime, the news of Nityananda Mahaprabhu's injury reached the Lord, who at once hurried to the spot in a fiery and angry mood. The Lord immediately invoked his Sudarshana Chakra, the Lord's ultimate weapon, shaped like a wheel, to kill the sinners. But Nityananda Mahaprabhu ki jai reminded him of his mission. The mission of the Lord was to deliver the hopelessly fallen souls of Kali Yuga, and the brothers Jagai and Madai were typical examples of these fallen souls. 90% of the population of this age resembles these brothers despite high birth and mundane respectability. According to the verdict of the revealed scriptures, the total population of the world in this age will be lowest Shudra quality, or even lower. It should be known that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu never acknowledged the stereotyped caste system by birthright. Rather, he strictly followed the verdict of the Shastras in the matter of one's Swarupa or real identity. When the Lord was invoking his Sudarshana Chakra and Srila Nityananda Prabhu was imploring him to forgive the two brothers, both the brothers fell down at the lotus feet of the Lord and begged his pardon for their gross behavior. The Lord was also asked by Nityananda Prabhu to accept these repenting souls, and the Lord agreed to accept them on one condition: that they henceforward completely give up all their sinful activities and habits of debauchery. Both the brothers agreed and promised to give up all their sinful habits, and the kind Lord accepted them and did not again refer to their past misdeeds. This is the specific kindness of Lord Chaitanya. In this age, no one can say that he is free from sin. It is impossible for anyone to say this, but Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepts all kinds of sinful persons on the one condition that they promise not to indulge in sinful habits after being spiritually initiated by the bona fide spiritual master. There are a number of instructive points to be observed in this incident of the two brothers. In this Kali Yuga, practically all people are the quality of the Jagai Madai. If they want to be relieved from the reactions of their misdeeds, they must take shelter of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and after a spiritual initiation, thus refrain from those things which are prohibited in the Shastras. The prohibitory rules are dealt with the Lord's teachings to Srila Rupa Goswami. During his householder life, the Lord did not display many of the miracles which are generally expected from such personalities, but he did once perform a wonderful miracle in the house of Srinivas Thakur. While Sankirtana was in the full swing, he asked the devotees what they wanted to eat, and when he was informed that they wanted to eat mangoes, he asked for a seed of a mango. Although this fruit was out of season, when the seed was brought to him, he sowed it in the yard of Srinivas, and once a creeper began to grow out of the seed. Within no time, this creeper became a full-grown mango tree heavy with more ripened fruits that the devotees could eat. The tree remained in Srinivas's yard, and from then on, the devotees used to take as many mangoes from their tree as they wanted. The Lord had a very high estimation of the affections of the damsels of Rajabhumi Vrindavana for Krishna, and in appreciation of their unalloyed service to the Lord, once Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu chanted the holy names of the Lord Gopis, Hare Krishna, instead of the names of the Lord. At this time, some of his students who were also disciples came to see him. When they saw that the Lord was chanting the name of the Gopis, they were astonished. Out of the sheer foolishness, they asked the Lord why he was chanting the names of the Gopi and advised him to chant the name of Krishna. The Lord, who was in ecstasy, was thus disturbed by these foolish students. He chastised them and chased them away. The students were almost at the same age as the Lord. Thus they wrongly thought of the Lord as one of their peers. They held a meeting and resolved that they would attack the Lord if he dared to punish them again in such a manner. This incident provoked some malicious talks about the Lord on the part of the general public. When the Lord became aware of this, he began to consider the various types of men found in society. He noted that especially the students, professors, fruitive workers, yogis, non-devotees, and different types of atheists were all imposed in the devotional service of the Lord. My mission is to deliver all the fallen souls of this age. He thought, but if they commit offences against me, thinking me to be an ordinary man, they will not benefit. If they are to begin their life of spiritual realization, they must somewhere or another offer obeisances to me. Thus the Lord decided to accept the renounced order of the life, sannyas, because people in general were inclined to offer respect to a sannyasi. 500 years ago, the conditions of the society was not as degraded as it today. At that time, people would show respect to a sannyasi, and the sannyasi was rigid in the following the rules and regulations of the renounced order of the life. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was not very much in favor of renounced order of the life in this age of Kali, but that was only for the reason that the very few sannyasis in this age were able to observe the rules and regulations of the sannyas life. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu decided to accept the order and became an ideal sannyasi so that the general populace would show him respect. One is duty bound to show respect to a sannyasi. For a sannyasi is considered to be the master of all varnas and ashramas. While he was contemplating accepting the sannyas order, it is so happened that the Keshav Bharati, a sannyasi of the Mayavadi school and resident of the Katwa in Bengal, visited Navadvipa and was invited to dine with the Lord. When Keshav Bharati came to his house, the Lord asked him to award him the sannyas order of the life. This was a matter of the formality. The sannyas order is to be accepted from another sannyasi. Although the Lord was independent in all respects, still to keep up the formalities of the Shastras, he accepted the sannyas order from Keshav Bharati. Although Keshav Bharati was not in the Vaishnava Sampradaya school. After consulting with the Keshav Bharati, the Lord left Navadvipa for Katwa to formally accept the sannyas order of the life. He was accompanied by Srila Nityananda Prabhu, Chandrasekhar Acharya and Mukunda Datta. These three assisted him in the details of the ceremony. The incident of the Lord's accepting the sannyas order is very elaborately described in the Chaitanya Bhagavata by Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur. Thus, at the end of his 24th year of the Lord accepted the sannyas order of the life in the month of Magh. After accepting this order, he became a full-fledged preacher of the Bhagavata Dharma. Although he was doing the same preaching work in his house, world life, when he accepted, experienced some obstacles into his preaching. He sacrificed even the comfort of his home life for the sake of the fallen souls. In his household life, his chief assistants were Srila Advaita Prabhu and Srila Srivas Thakur. But after he accepted the sannyas order, his chief assistant became Srila Nityananda Prabhu, who was deputed to preach specifically in Bengal. And the six Goswamis, Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, Jiva Goswami, Gopal Bhatta Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami and Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, headed by Srila Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami, who were deputed to go to Vrindavan to execute the present places of pilgrimage. The present city of Vrindavan and importance of Brajabhumi were thus disclosed by the will of the Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Ki Jai. The Lord, after accepting the sannyas order, at once wanted to start for Vrindavana. For 3 continuous days he travelled to the Radha Desh, places where the Ganges does not flow. He was in full ecstasy over the idea of going to Vrindavana. However, Srila Nityananda diverted his path to brought him instead of the house of the Advaita Prabhu in Shantipura. The Lord stayed at Sri Advaita Prabhu's house for a few days, and knowing well that the Lord was leaving his heart and for the good, Sri Advaita Prabhu sent his men to Navadvipa to bring Mother Sachi Devi to have a last meeting with her son. Some unscrupulous people say that the Lord Chaitanya met his wife also after taking sannyas and offered her his wooden slipper for worship, but the authentic sources give no information about such a meeting. His mother met him at the house of the Advaita Prabhu, and when she saw her son in sannyas dress, she lamented by way of compromise. She requested her son to make his headquarters in Puri so that she would easily be able to get information about him. The Lord granted the last desire of his beloved mother. After this incident, the Lord started for Puri, leaving all the residents of Navadvipa in an ocean of lamentation over his separation. The Lord visited many important places on the way to Puri. He visited the temple of Gopinathji, who had stolen condensed milk for his devotee Srila Madhavendra Puri. Shri Shirachora Gopinath ki Jai. Since then, deity Gopinathji is well known as Shirachora Gopinath. The Lord relished this story with great pleasure. This propensity of stealing is there even in the absolute consciousness. But because this propensity is exhibited by the absolute, it loses its perverted nature and thus becomes worshipable even by Lord Chaitanya. On the basis of the absolute consideration that the Lord and his stealing propensity are one and identical. This interesting story of Gopinathji is vividly explained in the Chaitanya Charitamrita by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami Ki Jai. After visiting the temple of the Shirachara Gopinath of Remuna and Balasore in Odisha, the Lord proceeded towards Puri, and on the way visited the temple of Sakshi Gopal, who appeared as a witness in the matter of 2 Brahmana devotees' family quarrel. The Lord heard the story of Sakshi Gopal with great pleasure because he wanted to impress upon the atheists that the worshipable deities in the temples approved by the great acharyas are not idols, as aligned by men with a poor fund of knowledge. The deity in the temple is the arch incarnation of the personality of God, and thus the devotee is identical with the Lord in all respects. He responds to the proportion of the devotee's affection for him. In the story of Sakshi Gopal, in which there was a family misunderstanding by two devotees of the Lord, in order to mitigate the turmoil as well as to show specific favor to his servitors, traveled from Vrindavan to Vidyanagar at a village in Odisha in the form of his Archa incarnation. From there, the deity was brought to Cuttack, and thus the temple of Sakshi Gopal is even today visited by thousands of pilgrims on the way to Jagannath Puri. The Lord stayed overnight there and began to proceed toward Puri. On the way, his sannyasa rod was broken by Nityananda Prabhu. The Lord became apparently angry with him about this and went alone to Puri, leaving his companions behind. At Puri, when he entered the temple of Jagannath, he became at once saturated with transcendental ecstasy and fell down on the floor of the temple in consciousness. The custodians of the temple could not understand the transcendental feats of the Lord, but there was a great learned Pandita named Sarabham Bhattacharya who was present, and he could understand that the Lord losing his consciousness upon entering the Jagannath temple was not an ordinary thing. Sarabham Bhattacharya, who was the chief appointed Pandita in the court of the king of Odisha, Maharaj Prataprudra was attracted by the youthful luster of the Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Could understand that such a transcendental trance was only rarely exhibited only then by the topmost devotees who are already on the transcendental plane in a complex forgetfulness of material existence. Only liberated soul could show such a transcendental feat, and the Bhattacharya, who was vastly learned, who could understand and this in the light of the transcendental literature with which he was familiar. He therefore asked the custodians of the temple not to disturb the unknown sannyasi. He asked them to take the Lord to his home so he could be further absorbed in this unconsciousness state. The Lord was at once carried to the home of Sarabham Bhattacharya, who at time had sufficient power of authority due to his being as the Sabha Pandita or the state dean of faculty in Sanskrit literatures. The learned Pandita wanted to scrutinizingly test the transcendental feats of the Lord Chaitanya, because often unscrupulous devotees imitate physical feats in order to flaunt transcendental achievements just to attract innocent people and take advantage of them. A learned scholar like the Bhattacharya can detect such impostors, and when he finds them out, he at once rejects them. In the case of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Bhattacharya tested all the symptoms in the light of the Shastras. He tested as a scientist, not as a foolish sentimentalist. He observed the movement of the stomach, the beating of the heart, and the breathing of the nostrils. He also felt the pulse of the Lord and saw that all his bodily activities were in a complete suspension. When he put up a small cotton swab before the nostrils, he found that there was a slight breathing as the fine fibers of the cotton moved slightly. Thus he came to know that the Lord's unconscious trance was genuine, and he began to treat him in the prescribed fashion. But Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu could only be treated in a special way. He could respond only to the resounding of the holiness of the Lord by his devotees. Special treatment was unknown to Sarabham Bhattacharya because the Lord was still unknown to him. When the Bhattacharya saw him for the first time in the temple, he simply took him to be one of many pilgrims. In the meantime, the companions of the Lord who reached the temple a little after him heard of the Lord's transcendental feats and of his being carried away by the Bhattacharya. The pilgrims at the temple were still gossiping about the incident, but by chance one of the pilgrims had met Gopinathacharya, who was known to Gadadhar Pandit, and from him it was learned that the Lord was lying in an unconscious state at the residence of the Sarabham Bhattacharya, who happened to be the brother-in-law of the Gopinathacharya. Hare Krishna. All the members of the party were introduced by Gadadhar Pandit to Gopinath Acharya, who took them all to the house of the Bhattacharya, where the Lord was lying unconscious in a spiritual trance. All the members then chanted loudly the holy name of the Lord Hare as usual, and the Lord regained his consciousness. After this, Bhattacharya received all the members of the party, including Lord Nityananda Mahaprabhu, and asked them to become his guests of honors. The party, including the Lord, went for a bath in the sea, and the Bhattacharya arranged for their residence in the meals at the house of Kashi Mishra. Gopinath Acharya, his brother-in-law, also assisted. Basically, there was some friendly talks about the Lord's divinity between the two brothers-in-law, and in this argument, Gopinath Acharya, who knew the Lord before, now tried to establish the Lord as personality of Godhead, and the Bhattacharya tried to establish him as one of the great devotees. Both of them argued from the angle of vision and authentic shastras, and not on strength of sentimental vox populi. The incarnations of the God are determined by the authentic shastras and not by popular votes of the foolish fanatics. Well, Lord Chaitanya was an incarnation of God, in fact. Foolish fanatics have proclaimed so many so-called incarnations of God in this age without referring to authentic scriptures. But Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya or Gopinath Acharya did not indulge in such foolish sentimentalism. On the contrary, both of them tried to establish or reject his divinity on the strength of authentic shastras. This is becoming more than our kind of a thing, so I'll just basically read something out. Like later it was described the Bhattacharya come from Navadip area. Then Lamba Chakravarti, the material grandfather of Lord Chaitanya, the class fellow of the father of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. The sannyas Lord Chaitanya invoked petal affection from Bhattacharya. Bhattacharya was the professor of many sannyas in the order of Sankaracharya Sampradaya, and he himself belonged to that cult. So the Bhattacharya desired that the young sannyas Lord Chaitanya also hear from him about the teachings of the Vedanta. The further Sankara cult are generally known as Vedantists. This does not mean that the Vedanta is a monopolist study of the Shankara Sampradaya is studied by the bona fide Sampradayas, but they have their own interpretations. But those in the are known as the ignorant of the knowledge of the Vedantist Vaishnavas. For the reason, the Bhaktivedanta title was first offered to the author of the Vaishnavas. The Lord agreed to take lessons from Bhattacharya. The Bhattacharya went on speaking, continued for 7 days with horrible intentions and did not interrupt. The Lord's silence raised some doubts in Bhattacharya's heart, and he asked the Lord. Heart was that he did not say anything or comment on his explanation of Bhagavad. The Lord posed himself before the Bhattacharya, a foolish student, and pretended that he had the one. Because the Bhattacharya was the first deity of the sannyasi. Lord did not agree with his lecture, but so-called Sampradaya who do not know instruction of Srila Bhasa. They are mechanical students of the Vedantas. They are not fully aware of the great knowledge. The explanation of Vedanta Sutra is given by the author himself in the text of Srimad Bhagavatam. One has no knowledge in the Bhagavatam will hardly be able to know the Vedanta Sutras. Bhattacharya, being vastly learned man, could follow the Lord's sarcasm. They could not follow. The Bhattacharya could discern the proper of his dread silence for the reason. For this Lord, my dear sir, understand the meaning of the sutras like Janmade Asya Yata Shastra Yonito Tata Brahma Jinyasa and Sutra. But when you explain them in your own way, it becomes able for me to follow them. The purpose of the Shastras is to completely explain them, but your explanations are covering them with something else. You do not purposely take the direct meaning of the Shastras, but indirectly give your own interpretations. Power of thinking. So there are Vasudeva has summarized the direct meanings of the mantras in the Upanishads in the Vedanta Sutra. Unfortunately, you do not take their direct meaning. You indirectly interpret them in a different way, which is wrong. The authority of the Vedas is unchangeable and in the Vedas must be spread immediately. Otherwise, one challenges the authority of the Vedas. Right? The conch shell and cow dung are bone and soul of the two living beings, but because they have been recommended by the Vedas as pure, people accept them as such because of the authority of the Vedas. The sad is that one cannot set his imperfect reasons above the authority of the Vedas. Lord Buddha directly denied the authority of the Vedas and he established no religion only for his reason. The Buddhist religion was not as strict followers of the Vedas. Those who are so-called followers of the Vedas are more unfair than the Buddhists. Should deny the Vedas directly, but the so-called followers of the Vedas have no way to deny the Vedas because they think that this is the time of waste of time, basically. For example, given by the Lord of the Concha and the Countdown are very much supported in this connection. If one agrees that since Countdown is so pure, the stool of the Lord Brahmana is still more pure, and his argument will not be true. Countdown is expressed as the stool of a highly posted Brahmana is legit then. The Vedic English is not self-authorized, and some mundane creatures adjust the interpretations of the Vedas. He defies their authority. It is foolish to think that oneself as more intelligent than Srila Vasudeva. He has already expressed interest in Shastra, and there was no need for him to explain. His work Vedanta basically no ads. This thing is, which is correct. True. The prediction of the Vedas the past and past of the indirect source of the emanation and most person is the supreme person amongst all the relative persons. The Vedas inform us that from him everything emanates, and from him only everything resides. After that annihilation, everything merges in him only. Therefore, he is the ultimate deity, causative and accommodating cause of all causes. And this causes cannot be attributed to an impersonal object, which is correct. The Puranas are also complementary to the Vedas. The Vedic mantras are too difficult for an ordinary man. So-called twice-born higher castes are unable to penetrate into the sense of the Vedas. Vedic mantras maintains that the absolute truth has no legs and no hands, and yet goes further than all the accepts everything that is offered to human dimension. The statements definitely suggest the personal features of the Lord, but though his hands and legs are distinguished from mundane hands and keeps on legs or others. The Dharma therefore is not impersonal, but when such mantras are indirectly interpreted, it is wrongly thought that the absolute truth is impersonal. The absolute truth, personal God, is full of appearances, and therefore he has a transcendental form of full existence, knowledge and bliss. How then one can establish the absolute truth is impersonal? Brahman, being full of appearances, Vishnu Purana, etc. The central energies of the Lord Vishnu are paramilitary. The spiritual energy and this Subhaya energy of the divinity is called Kshetragni energy. The Kshetragni Shakti through all the equal in the incorporeal with the Lord becomes overpowered by material energy out of ignorance, and thus refers all sorts of material miseries. In other words, the living entities are located in the marginal energy between the supreme which are inferior material energies, and the proportion to the living being contact with the other material or spiritual energy. The entity is situated in proportionately higher and the low levels of existence. External science, bliss, and internal knowledge. This is how our Lord is manifested in three different phases. This Lord is thus enjoying his transcendental form. It is not surrounding that one dares to call the Supreme Lord non-ageratic. The Lord is thus control of the energies, and living entities are parts of us rather than energies in it. Earth, water, fire, and either mind and equal inferior energies to the Lord. But the living entities are different from all the supreme energy. The Buddhists were called atheists because they have no respect for the Vedas. But those who defy the Vedic intelligence, as I mentioned, that the Prince of Being for the Vedas are more religious than the Buddhists. Sir Vasudeva kindly compiled the Vedic knowledge in his Vedanta Sutra, but if one hears the communication of the Mayavad school was represented by the Sankara Samprada, certainly he will be misled on the path of spiritual realization. Pranam or the Omkar in the Vedas. The Lord has thus put the Vedanta Sutra and defied all the propaganda of the Mayavad school. The Bhattacharya tried to defend himself and his Mayavad school by jugglery of logic and grammar, but the Lord defeated him by his forceful arguments. He affirmed that we all are related to the personality of God eternally, and that devotional service is our eternal function is in exchanging the dealings of our relations. The result of such exchanges is to attain prema or love of Godhead. Love of God is attained. Love for all the other beings automatically follows, because the Lord is the sum of total of all living beings. Lord said, but for these three items, namely internal relations with the God, exchange of dealings, such and okay, now it is. Correct. The Bhattacharya desired to witness and to the explanation of the Atma Rama Shloka from the Supreme Bhagavatam. The Lord, after hearing the Bhattacharya, asked him for the school presentation of the Shloka, and then at the request of the Bhattacharya, the Lord explained the Shloka in every 64 different ways without touching the line, the explanation given by the Bhattacharya. The explanation of the Atma Rama Shloka from the Bhattacharya was explained that such a try to witness Krishna himself. He then surrendered into him, repenting for his past dealings with him, and the Lord was kind enough to accept the Bhattacharya out of his causeless mercy. The Lord manifested before him first as a four-handed Vishnu Narayana, and then again as two-handed Lord Sri Krishna Chandra. That is Bhattacharya and Preface the most important, and these two shlokas explain the mission of the Lord in a gist. Let me surrender unto the person of God who was appeared now as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The Lord explained the Lord word Mukti to be equivalent to the word Vishnu, or the personality of Godhead. To attain Mukti or liberation from the bondage of material existence is to attain the service of the Lord. Savarna was a self-realized soul, although outwardly he belonged to a caste lower from the Brahmana in social state. He was not in the renounced order of life, and besides, when he was a high government servant in the state, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted him as a liberated soul on the strength of the order of his realization of transcendental knowledge. From the different communities such as I met Srimad Bhagavatam, but Ashrama Dharma followed by the Hindus was entered by the Lord. Sri Ramananda Raya said that following the principles of Ashrama Dharma, the system of four castes and four orders in human life, everyone could realize transcendence. In the opinion of this Lord, the system of the Varnashrama Dharma is this. Renunciation of the Varnashrama Dharma and accepting the devotional service. The Lord should not approve of this suggestion for the reason of all of a sudden one should not renounce his position, for that may not bring in the desired result. Self-realized holiness, hearing submissively transcendental message of the primes of the circumstantial world. Above this service by the Lord Sri transmitting the two great personalities and is purposely withhold those topics from the present because one has to come to the spiritual place plain before further talks with the Ramanandara. Stations of Lord Chaitanya, parts of India. Okay, the person is compromise. The source of all stages. Lord, I have taken to the Sankirtana movement instead of the study of the Vedanta because I am grateful. The Lord thus represented himself as one of the numberless fools of his age who are absolutely incapable of studying the Vedanta philosophy. The full indulgence in the study of Vedanta has caused so much havoc in the city. Thus, because I am grateful, my spiritual master forbid me to play Vedanta philosophy, except that is Vedanta and not for that me from material bondage. In the age of Kali, there is no other religion but the glorification of the Lord by utterance of His holy name, and that is the induction of all the revealed scriptures. And by spiritual masters has taught me one shloka from the Brahmana Naradiya Puran. Hare Nam, Kevalam Kalau Nasti Ke Eva Nasti Eva Gadir Nasta. Now, such a Maharaj and the Hari. So important, very much important. On the inside, normal the Lord was camping in Varanasi. Sanatana Goswami also right after the telephone office. He was formerly one of the state ministers of the Southern of Bengal and under the regime of Nawab Hussain Shahi, and they went to Varanasi, and the Lord might need him or the principal of his devotional service. He taught me about the continuous constitutional position of the living being, the cause of his bondage. About devotional activities, the different stages of the development. The Lord's teachings to Sri Chaitanya, Srimad Goswami from a big chapter in the text Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, and then teachings of Lord Chaitanya of course. At Mathura, Lord visited all the important places, and when he reached Vrindavana, Lord Chaitanya appeared in the family of a high caste Brahmana, and over and above that, a sannyasi was the preceptor of all the varnas and ashramas, but he used to accept males from the classes of Vaishnavas at Mathura. Sanodiya Brahmanas are considered to be in the lower state of standard, but the Lord accepted meals in the family of such a Brahmana also because of his most pent-up disciple of the Madhavendra Puri family. The Shloka by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The 8 shlokas completed by the Lord are: Glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated by 4 years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. Sankirtana movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and it enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. Oh my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In this transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. These are not even hard and just for rules for chanting these names. Oh my Lord, out of kindness you enable to us to verify, approach you by cheating your holy names. I am so unfortunate that I have no instruction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw on the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and ready to offer all respect to our brothers. In such a state of mind, no one can chant. One can chant the holy name of the Lord consistently. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service birth after birth. O fifth Shloka, O son of Maharaj Narada, Nanda Maharaj, sorry. I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I have fallen into the ocean of the birth and death. Sorry, please pick me from this ocean of death, and place me as one of the atoms of your lotus feet. Oh my Lord, when will my eyes will be decorated with tears of flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? Sorry. When will my voice choke up, and when will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? Seventh Shloka. O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I am feeling all back in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so even if he handles me roughly in this embrace or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai, Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai, Panch Tattva ki jai, Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki jai, Srila Saraswati इसी भक्ति वेदांत सरस्वती स्वामी सरस्वती पाद की जय, इसी भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी शिला प्रभुपाद की जय. Now dear devotees, we have come to chapter 1, which is questions by the sages, which we will read tomorrow. And it's been a long journey just to read Preface and Introduction though. And this will start our official journey of Srimad Bhagavatam. By this, reading the chapters of Srimad Bhagavatam, we have to offer our obeisances to everyone. First of Brahma, Narada, Brahmaji, Narada, Vyasadeva, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Panchatattva. Because of them, we are so sinful that we will do something that will basically disturb our spiritual life. So much so that we have to just remember them every time and just pray to Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that hey Mahaprabhu, please don't let any bad thought come into my mind or let me execute any of them. So sorry for this hiccups. And so from tomorrow onwards we have to even offer pranam mantra, which is Om Ajnanati Vinandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Puritananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. We will read chapter 1 questions by the sages tomorrow. Thank you so much for listening to me.